Welcome to this webinar about threat detection and SIEM as a service and how this can make life easier when you need to detect intrusions in your IT systems. My name is Jäger, and today I have Fredrik Svantes here to give us an introduction to threat detection and SIEM. Hi, Fredrik.
Hello, Anna.
Hey. You are information security manager here in Base Farm, and you have also been you're also a leader for our SecOps team. How long have you been working with cybersecurity, cyber defense, and how long have you been in Base Farm? Just as a short introduction to everyone.
So I've been in the information security field in different types of positions since around 2004. Back when I was working with security within online video games. And then in 2009 I moved over to Base Farm and started working as a non-IT security person actually. But 2 years later, in 2011, I became the lead of the security incident response team over at Base Farm. And from there, I obtained different positions within Base Farm, such as information security manager, head of our security operations, and other security positions.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to, before we kick this presentation, just wanted to remind everyone that it's possible to download some of our great content here, our digital ability report or our one-pager about SIEM as a service, if you want to understand and read more. And of course, we also have a security blog, which is very good. So you can subscribe to that one. If you have questions, please email your questions to us and we will get back to you. And you can also forward this presentation or this webinar to colleagues if you would like. You can see that on the right-hand side. Yeah, that's about it for the introduction here. So before we start going into the cyber defense and cyber threats and everything, I just want to give a short introduction about Base Farm, a European managed service provider. And we were born in Norway in the year 2000. And we've been around now for 19 years working with mission-critical application management. And we focus on big data, cloud, and information security. In 2018, we were bought by Orange Business Services. So we're now part of the Orange Group since 2018. That was just a short introduction to us. So let's start with the first question here. Fredrik, why are we here today?
Yeah, so we're here today to talk about the current threat landscape on the internet and why it's important to be able to detect these threats that are coming into your network and how to defend against them once you spot them. One of the big issues today is that it takes a very, very long time for an organization to detect when a breach happens within their organization. And on average, it currently takes around 200 days when we looked at it on a global scale. And this is a big issue because during these 200 days, people are able to go into your networks, read your emails, check your servers, read documents, and etc. And after these 200 days, it's most often not your employees that finds the breach, but the notification usually comes from law enforcement or a newspaper or a governmental computer emergency response team, a search, or it could be from a customer that finds their data on the dark web. And this is obviously a very big issue today because of the big importance that the internet has for companies. As time progresses, the importance of what's available online is increasing by large magnitude, and this can also be seen in the costs that are inflicted by these type of data breaches. So at the moment, a typical data breach costs a company around $3.86 million, which is up 6.4% from last year. And this is only going to increase more and more, given that the amount of money and importance of what's being stored online is increasing on a daily basis. What does a SIEM, or a security incident and event management system, do? In a very basic explanation, it collects data or logs from a big magnitude of log sources. It can be log sources such as servers or firewalls, can be file and directory structures, can be from network equipment, application logs, it could be from containers, or it could be from your cloud environments, or any types of system that produces any logs, really, of any shape or form. These logs are then sent into a data correlation engine, which does risk analysis based on business context and threat intelligence that's being fed into it. And in this case, business context could be what type of field are you working in, where are your customers located, and what type of activity do they normally, or what type of activity does your employees normally do. While threat intelligence can be things such as known bad IP numbers, or known bad attack signatures, and other types of threat intelligence, and different types of indicators of compromise. This is then running through a machine learning engine that checks for previous behaviors and compares it against the current behaviors and raises alerts when it sees something that's not really that's out of the ordinary. The alerts then are shipped off to an analyst who will conduct an investigation to see is this an actual incident, or could it be a false positive that we don't need to look into anymore. And when it's an actual incident, it's shipped off to different security engineers that can conduct either forensics or can stop the attack as it's happening, and other types of technicians. The problem generally with a SIEM solution is that it's very costly. It costs a lot of money to run a SIEM if you want to run it in a functional way. First of all, you need to purchase the software, which can be quite a substantial part of a IT security organization, or an IT security department within the organization. But the purchase cost for the license is far from the highest cost in this case. It's actually the human aspect that's the large cost here. Because you need a team that knows how to operate a SIEM. They need to be able to work with different types of indicators of compromise. They need to be able to know how to work with a threat hunting loop, and they need to be able to detect different types of attacks in the cyber kill chain. And this type of competence is very, very hard to find, and it's very expensive when you do find it. And these people also are the types who want a lot of challenges, and who want to be learning new things on a constant basis, which means that you need an environment where they have the the ability to learn and to grow. The other part is, of course, that if you want to be able to react to these type of alerts 24/7, you need an on-call service, which if you want to build that on your own, it also takes a lot of resources and costs a lot of money. So there's a big cost involved in this. So based on us, we're thinking about these challenges and come up with a solution that we feel is beneficial for different organizations when it comes to having a SIEM and the costs that are involved in that. What we have done is created a solution based on Elastic Stack, which means that you can not only use the SIEM as a SIEM and nothing else, but you can also use it for things such as operational logging or application performance monitoring and business intelligence and a wide array of other things, not just IT security. So this means that it's not only the IT security department that has to take the full cost of this, because it's highly beneficial to the other departments as well. And I will show a few slides here about what you can actually do with Elastic that's not only related to the SIEM. So when it comes to Elastic, you can ship any type of logs in, as I mentioned earlier. You can then create dashboards for different types of logs. Here, for example, you can see logs from a web server, and you can see some logs from a database server. This can be presented as dashboards, which can be very useful to detect discrepancies. And you can also do just regular text search to find logs between all the different servers that you have in your environment. So if you have, for example, 20 web fronts, you can add them all to the Elastic Stack, and from one single interface, you can search through all of the logs in order to find an error message, for example, rather than logging into each server and trying to locate the error message on each machine. Different types of metrics, and again, you can collect data points from any place. It can be from databases, web servers, or just regular Windows servers or Linux servers, or Mac servers if you have that, or clients, or containers, etc. This can then again be presented as dashboards to visually represent how your environment is doing. You can, for example, here see some metrics surrounding web servers. You can see some metrics about databases, and you can also see metrics about how different container systems are doing. So you can detect, for example, if some containers are having issues and needs to be looked into, or if the containers are healthy, and or if you need to do any maintenance with them. You can also use Elastic Stack for application performance monitoring. And this is a system that jacks into your applications. You inject your application with a piece of code that then starts to monitor the application from within. So rather than looking at logs, it actually monitors the entire process and sees from within which calls and which dependencies are causing slowdowns or maybe not fully efficiently configured. And it supports a wide range of coding languages such as Java or Python or Node.js or Go, and now they have started with support for .NET as well. you can see some examples of what the APM dashboards look like. You can really drill down and see which kind of requests are taking the longest and why are these requests taking a long time to process. So by using APM, you can, for example, see that an application is currently slow due to a database query that's not really optimized, for example. Or it could be that an application server has too little CPU allocated to it, so it can't process all the requests. Or it could be a new update, for example, that you did a release for, and this release has got some optimization requirements that needs to be done. So this is basically a way for you to detect issues within your application and to be able to optimize it a lot. All of these things that I mentioned now have the ability to have alerting enabled for, and that means that you're able to create alerts that will alert you whenever something happens. So it could be, for example, that you want to receive an email or a text message or a Slack message or anything like that whenever a specific query, such as the logging function to your web portal, takes longer than 2 seconds. If that happens, you want to receive an alert. That's something that you can do within this. You can also create machine learning for it in order to detect when something is out of the ordinary. So for the metrics part, you could of course create a machine learning that monitors the, let's say, CPU usage on the machine. So if the CPU usage is normally 20% and then all of a sudden it goes up to 40%, then it could give you an alert to start looking into what's going on. And for the APM, you could, for example, create a machine learning job that detects the transaction duration, and if it goes out of the ordinary, too high or too low even, it could give you an alert to start looking into. You can also use Elastic for site searching. This is what Elastic was built for originally. It was actually a recipe database that you could search within. But now it's a search engine that's being used in the majority of websites across the world, such as imdb.com. And it's very fast and very efficient. So it's a possibility to use Elastic for that as well, in a very easy manner. As I mentioned, you can also use machine learning, and you can see here a bit what it looks like on where it goes through different scales, and if it goes above or below, it can create an alert depending on your configuration. You can of course set these threshold levels so that it only does create an alert if it goes above X in threshold, for example. And here you can see an example about the alerting. In this case, you can create error alerts, for example, and you can create a watcher for it. And if it sees something, it can alert you in a large variety of ways. So back to using Elastic as a SIEM solution. In order to have a SIEM, you probably want someone to be able to act on the alerts. And what we have done in Baseform is to create a security operations center. We have a 4-tier security operations center, where the first tier is our triage specialist, they are the ones that does the initial assessment of the potential incident. They are a group of around 100 people who will look into all the alerts from all our IT security systems, such as anti-DDoS systems, web application firewalls. It can be intrusion detection systems, and of course it can be alerts from our SIEM solutions. If they detect something that they see as an actual incident, they will escalate it to our Tier 2, our security analysts. They are the ones who conduct IT forensics on systems. They have the expertise needed to find what has happened and make sure that they don't destroy any evidence during the investigations. We also have our Tier 3, who are the ones that focus on more proactive matters, such as threat hunting and other preventive measures. They work with vulnerability assessments, penetration testing, and other things that are more proactive in nature. And then we have the Tier 4, which is the SOC manager, which is the basically escalation point if something goes very wrong. What we have noticed since we started our security incident response team back in 2011 is that information is extremely important. We put a lot of effort into information gathering, and because of that, we are part of many different forums and organizations that work with IT security. So we are part of the global forums such as first.org, which is a forum for incident response teams. We are also part of a European version of first.org, which is called TFC Cert. And we are also one of the founders of the Swedish CERT forum, which is a forum that we created together with the Swedish government CERT, the Swedish Defense Ministry, and other organizations within Sweden. And we're also actively participating with discussions with CERT-SE, for example, or NorCERT, which is the Norwegian CERT. We're also part of the Cloud Security Alliance, and since we were purchased by Orange Cyber Defense, we now have many people within the Orange Cyber Defense organization that are able to provide us with information. And this is very important because throughout these different types of channels, we get a lot of information that are not available to the public. And by using this information internally, we are able to detect and protect our customers before the knowledge becomes public and other attackers start abusing this kind of information. When it comes to the SIEM, we take the log files, as I mentioned in the beginning, from all the different types of systems. It can be logs from our web application, for example. Normally, a log file contains things such as an IP number, time of access, what they accessed or what did they do, basically. This in itself can, of course, be interesting, but when you enrich it with other information, it becomes a lot more interesting. So what we do is that we enrich it with threat intelligence by using things like I mentioned about known malware hashes or indicators of compromise. It can be known bad IP numbers, for example. So if a user logs into a system from a known bad IP number, we can have an alert created immediately. We can also add GUIP information to the data, and instead of just showing an IP number, we can show geographical information about where this IP comes from. So in certain cases, we can even drill it down to the street where this IP number is registered. And this can be used, for example, if we know that normally our employees are logging in from Sweden, then all of a sudden someone logs in from another country, then that's something that we can detect, and we can act on it very quickly. Of course, you can use other methods to do this as well. Not only do it statically by saying that all employees should only log in from Sweden, but you can actually say that if something is out of the ordinary, then I want to be alerted as well by using our machine learning tactics, as I mentioned before as well. And in that case, you may want to look at where people log into normally, and then it will be able to detect that this person logs in from a different location. It could even be a different location in Sweden, for example. We can also enrich it with other information, such as vacation data or organizational chart data, in order to prioritize certain users or certain workstations or servers or whatever else that may be useful. We have a large list of indicators of compromise that I mentioned, and we look at a wide variety of things to detect when a breach has happened. And it can be things such as failed login attempts and privilege changes or suspicious site visits. Can also be unusual outbound network traffic, such as a database machine all of a sudden starting to send traffic out from the server onto an external site in another country, for example. When we do the security analytics, we look at a lot of different things, and we create different types of dashboards that are useful for both us and for the customer. And that's something also worth mentioning, that everything that we see within the Elastic Stack interface is also what the customer sees. The customer have full access into the system. They can add whatever logs they want. They can add whatever dashboards they want. They can create their own search filters, etc. And they can also create their own machine learnings and look at what the dashboards and machine learning jobs that we create. So we create different types of machine learning jobs and dashboards that are valuable to each customer. So this is what authentication logs could look like, for example, on a dashboard. You can see that these are failed logins, and we can see which user is trying to log in most and where are they coming from, for example. We can also look at audit data to see which commands are running on the server and how often are they running. And in this case, it's probably more interesting to see which commands are least being run, because those are probably the ones worth looking into in case of a breach, for example. The net flow statistics, and it's possible to get full dashboards for that to detect if the network is behaving different out of the ordinary, for example. We can also look at DNS traffic to detect things such as DNS exfiltration attacks. And again, as I mentioned, we use machine learning, and this is one of the key aspects when it comes to the SIEM solution, because there are so many things going on within a system that it's for a human mind to be able to process it all. It would be impossible, because there are so many logs every second that it's not possible to sit there and monitor it by looking at it. So we depend on machine learning as well to be able to detect what's out of the ordinary. And by doing that, we can very quickly see things that aren't really there from this, that shouldn't be there. Rather than looking for specific type of attacks or known malware, for example, or known indicators of compromise, which is attacks that have already happened in the past, we can actually detect previously unknown attacks by utilizing machine learning. Because if you do an attack on a system, something will happen that is out of the ordinary. Someone will do something that is not normally done, either on a web application, or it could be a piece of network equipment or anything else. It will be something that's not really normal, and that's something that we can get an alert on, and from there we can start looking into it a bit more in detail and see what's caused this out of the ordinary action. And we can also see, here's an example about what type of things we can see. Here we can see that all of a sudden the admin user tries to log in a lot more, which is something that's out of the ordinary. And we can also see here DNS tunnel detection. When someone has not only tried but actually succeeded in sending data out from the network by using DNS tunneling, because other outbound ports were closed. So we have an example here of what you can see, or how an attack usually plays out, and how you can use Elasticstack to detect this attack, and what type of measures you would normally take when you detect this. So as I mentioned in one of the first slides, I was talking a bit about the cyber kill chain, which is comprised of 7 different steps. The first one being the reconnaissance step, where someone will start to map out the company, see what type of systems they have, which employees do they have, and find potential weak spots to exploit, which could be humans, or it could be servers or applications or whatever else. But in this scenario, we have a vulnerable JBoss application, which allows an attacker to run a command on the server itself by simply sending a HTTP request to the vulnerable server. So this attacker has sent a request to the web application saying that I want the web server to run a PowerShell command. And this is obviously something that is extremely out of the ordinary. This is not something that a normal web server would be doing. A normal web server does not start a PowerShell process from itself, because that's not what a web application is meant to do. So this is something that should definitely create a red flag when it happens. Once this PowerShell command has been run, it's created a service on the server, and this service is creating the foothold on the machine. So what it does is that it installs an application so that whenever the server reboots, it will automatically start this application and give the attacker control of the server again, even if the JBoss vulnerability is corrected. And this is also something that could be seen as out of the ordinary, because a web server, for example, in this case, generally speaking, it's quite static. You install it, you patch it, you do some configuration changes, but you don't generally install new services on it. So that's also something that you would be able to detect here as something that's out of the ordinary and act on that. The attacker then runs a command called Mimikatz, which is a password stealing application, a known software used by attackers to steal account information. And this is an extremely red flag, and if this happens, it would, in the vast majority of cases, indicate that you have had a compromise on your machine, and you would be able to act on this and isolate the machine and look into what happened and correct the issue. So the next step that the attacker does is that it uses the passwords or the password hash that Mimikatz provided with, and uses this to gain access to other systems within the network. And this is also something that would be seen as highly out of the ordinary and not something that a web server should be doing in this way. This machine is also then used for reconnaissance, so it's being used to port scan other machines, and of course a web server should not be running a port scanner on other machines, so this is also something that would be seen as something that's out of the ordinary. And once they have found what they were after, they were able to extract the information by using WinSCP from within the server and shipping it off to another site. And this, again, not something that would be seen as normal activity for a web server, which is meant to receive and send web traffic. These are all the type of steps that an attacker would take, and of course you don't need to be able to detect every single one, but what you want to do is detect it before they reach the final step, which in this case is the exfiltration step. And by using a SIEM solution, such as Elasticstack, you can actually detect these things and stop them before it's exfiltrated. If you don't have it, it becomes extremely hard and extremely time-consuming to be able to find these things. You would have to sit and manually monitor for these type of events, which is not really realistic. You need some way of automating this to be able to detect when it happens, so that you can, instead of waiting 200 days, you can actually detect it within hopefully a few minutes and start mitigating the attack and kicking out the attacker and correcting the vulnerability that they used before they're actually able to cause any harm within the system and within your organization.
Thank you very much, Fredrik. That was very interesting. I have received a couple of questions here while you were explaining all these things to us. And some of them, maybe we can just discuss them a little bit here. I have received this about if you go with such a SIEM solution on Elastic, do you have to predefine anomalies before you get going? Is one question.
No, you can use the machine learning for detecting things that are unknown anomalies, so to speak. You can set defined things to look for, but it's definitely possible to use the machine learning functions to detect anomalies without predefining them.
Okay. Another question here is, what would you say is the most common mistake companies do, or when they buy SIEM as a service? Generally, I mean, not from us.
I would say that the general issue could be that they feel that they can just outsource it and then they'll touch it ever again. But the truth is that it is a cooperation between the vendor and the customer, because if you want this to be successful, you do need to cooperate, because it's not only about finding specific vulnerabilities, but it is about knowing your customer. And the more a vendor knows their customer, the more of an opportunity they have to actually detect breaches. Because if, for example, you have a customer that you don't really know where they are operating or what type of customers they have, etc., it becomes harder to detect anomalies within the user behavior than if you know that my customers are, generally speaking, people from within Finland, and they are most often connected between 8 and 5, for example. So the more information you have, the better it becomes for the customer.
Mm-hmm. And the final question here is about Elastic Stack, because as you said and explained, it can be used for many things, not only for security log management, but also for example, for APM, application performance monitoring. Does that has an impact on the cost for this service?
Yeah. So the Elastic the Elastic Stack in this case is the underlying product that we have, and then we have different services on top of it. And for Elastic Stack, when you're using Elastic Stack for things such as application performance monitoring or business intelligence or operational analysis or whatever else you may want to use it for, what drives the cost is the consumption. So the more storage you need, the higher cost you have. That's the cost driving factor in this case. It's the storage and the amount of RAM that you need.
Thank you. I would also end this webinar by just giving you some information about what we do when it comes to defense and secure operations, because maybe you sit here and would like to know more about BaseFarm. And I mean, we are focusing and experts on mission critical application management. So of course, cyber defense and information security and compliance are part of our offering. And you can see here on the slide, we divided them into protection, detection, response, and compliance services to our secure operations, which is our focus and our core. So you can add more services here. And for the SIEM service, this is just a summary. We have a global network of cyber threat intelligence, and by using that and Basefarm, you can find and address anomalies faster, so which lower the impact of security breaches. We also have our 24/7 4-tier security operations center, as you presented before, Fredrik, and it's a lower cost of entry, and you get more functions in the Elastic Cloud solution. And you get a single point of contact for your mission-critical workload and log management. And here you see Esten Hoel, our Senior Vice President of Security and Compliance. So just to summarize, you can use the SIEM platform yourself, but do you have the competence and the time to act on the cyber threats? Here in Basefarm, we have the know-how and resources in our security incident response team. We can act on information security incidents 24/7. And that is the main message I want to that you bring out today, that we can help you detect and protect you and find anomalies much faster with the SIEM as a service solution. And with that, I want to thank Fredrik for giving us this insight, and wish you all a good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.